Hi, my name is Brandon and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. And today I want to talk about relationships in early recovery, something that is a sensitive topic, a lot of different opinions on this. And I will give the same advice that you have probably heard from a lot of other people, which is in general, it's a good idea to avoid establishing new romantic relationships early in recovery. Second piece of advice, in general, it's a good idea not to make drastic decisions about existing relationships in early recovery. So let's talk a little bit about why that is, looking at some text from Living Sober, and just going over, let's start first with the idea of existing relationships. So a lot of people who come to recovery, and this was my situation, been with my wife for over 15 years. She has been there through the worst of my drinking and drug use. A lot of our relationship is tied up in that and in the wreckage of my past. And so when I came out of treatment, there was a lot of healing, a lot of work that had to be done there. And so we have to, as recovering alcoholics and addicts, recognize that work that has to happen. Got a really good friend in treatment in recovery as well, who was in a situation where his family was very untrusting of him, and that's a nice way of putting it. He had really hurt his family. He came out of recovery and did so much incredible work with his family, and they saw that work, and so they were willing to give him a chance over and over and over again. And finally, as the months went on, and I'm fortunate enough that this person is a constant presence in my life, and so I got to watch this happen. As the months went on, that trust grew, and all of a sudden, one day he came to me and he said, "Brandon, it's like I got my best friend back." It was a beautiful thing to see, but it took work and it took effort. And when we were in treatment together, he was concerned that something drastic was going to happen when he was, as soon as he got out. He was concerned that, a divorce might be imminent, that, there might be some pretty quick decisions made. And fortunately, that didn't happen. And the moral of the story is, we've got to make sure that we deal with what Living Sober calls the touchiness at home. So, what they say is our shaky emotional condition also affects our feelings toward old friends and family. For many of us, these relationships seem to heal promptly as we pursue recovery. For others, there arrives a period of touchiness at home. Now that we're sober, we have to sort out how we actually feel about spouse, children, siblings, parents, or neighbors, then re-examine our behavior. Fellow workers, clients, employees, or employers also require such attention. Often our drinking has had a severe emotional impact on those closest to us, and they too may need help in recovering. And that's why groups like Al-Anon, Alateen exist to help people close to the recovering alcoholic or addict recover themselves, because they have had, they have suffered in their own personal way from our disease. So it's important to recognize that and to appreciate that as you're re-engaging in the relationship in early recovery. Then let's turn to the controversial topic of relationships in early recovery. And here's kind of the side, what I've noticed anecdotally is that most people with an extended amount of recovery, with a long period of recovery, a year, several years, tend to say, don't enter into a relationship early in recovery. It's a bad idea in general. And even if things work out, It's not necessarily the greatest time to build the foundation for a long-term, meaningful relationship with another person. I have, again, anecdotally, this is just from what I've seen. I've known several people who have entered into relationships early in recovery. And all of those relationships, except one, have either ended poorly or resulted in a lot of emotional turmoil for the addict and alcoholic who's involved in the relationship, or have led to relapse, just straight up relapse, recurrence of alcohol and drug use by the person in the relationship. And in all of those situations, it was from, again, I'm no expert, but from the outside looking in, these people entered into relationships because they were looking to fill something within themselves that was empty. They were looking to fill something that that was missing. They were looking to fill a gap the same way that they were looking to fill it with alcohol or drugs. And that's why people advise don't enter into a relationship with someone early in recovery. Take that time to learn how to be okay with just being you on your own. And I know it's easy for me to say, as someone who was in a relationship when I was in recovery, when I started recovery. But for those who aren't, it is important to consider that maybe the first 6 months to a year of recovery is really a good time just to learn to be okay with just being you on your own. And, one of the arguments that they make in living sober is that it can be flat out dangerous to enter into a relationship with someone else, especially if you make your recovery contingent on that other person or something they do. So, the idea of we'll help each other stay sober, that's a very problematic idea. You know, the idea of, we're in this together. Even that, it sounds great, but it's a problematic idea, because if you're in something together and one person falls off, that what does that mean for the other person? Here's what they say about this. Tying our sobriety to someone we are emotionally involved with proves flatly disastrous. I'll stay sober if so and so does this or that puts an unhealthy condition on our recovery. That's really important stuff there. We don't want conditions on our recovery. And we especially don't want conditions on our recovery that are based on something someone else does. That's one of the most important parts of recovery, is not to base our behavior and our emotional and mental well-being on what other people do. We have to stay sober for ourselves, no matter what other people do or fail to do. It is easy to consider yourself an exception to this generalization. Newly sober, you may earnestly believe that you have at long last found real love, or that your present attitude of dislike, persisting even into sobriety, means there always was something fundamentally wrong about the relationship. In either instance, you may be right, but just now, it's wise to wait and see whether your attitude will change. Again and again, we have seen such feelings change dramatically in only a few months of sobriety. So, using first things first, we have found it helpful to concentrate first on sobriety alone, steering clear of any risky emotional entanglements. Immature or premature liaisons are crippling to recovery. Only after we have had time to mature somewhat beyond merely not drinking are we equipped to relate maturely to other people. Look, to each his own, and I'm not here to judge. And I genuinely want people to succeed in their intimate relationships in life and in recovery in general. But I have seen literally one relationship work out, and it's not even this relationship is still in its infancy, in to be honest. um Otherwise, relationships in early recovery are built on an already shaky foundation. I am a year and 5 months into my sobriety now, and I still feel like I'm really changing a lot, and still trying to learn a lot. And if I was not in a relationship right now, I would not feel very comfortable with trying to establish an intimate bond with someone else based on where I am with myself right now. So we have to recognize how much we are changing early in recovery. Again, are there exceptions to this rule? Yes. Could you be an exception? You may be. But is it worth the risk? That's what we have to think about. So that's it for relationships. I hope you have a great day today, and I'll see you back here with more tomorrow.